Good morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the sixth edition of the Coffee in Good Company series on behalf of the B-Lab Europe team. My name is Yeliz Mert, country partner manager of B-Lab Europe, and I'll be your host for this morning's coffee hour. Our guest today is Eric Ezechieli of Nativa, and we will be discussing about Benefit Corporation and how did this come about in Italy. But before we dive into all of that, I want to do a little bit of context setting around why we're meeting around this coffee since the beginning of June and what we are trying to achieve as B-Lab Europe and now Interdependence Coalition. So earlier this year, B-Lab Europe, together with more than 60 B Corp signatories, submitted a response to the European Commission's consultation on sustainable corporate governance. In its response, B-Lab Europe called on the European Commission to require company directors to balance its interest with those who either contribute and or are affected by the business and therefore have a stake in it. Therefore, while we are waiting European Commission's proposal, which we expect to come out in autumn, we're creating a library of stakeholder governance cases from around Europe, thanks to B Corp leaders and friends. And since early June, we've been hosting these weekly conversations to demystify the concept of sustainable stakeholder governance. And especially we chose this format of online event series so that we can share them with all of you joining, listening in, instead of having these conversations ourselves in isolation. And excitingly, since we've been in this action early this year, we also brought our efforts together under one umbrella. And 2 weeks ago, we launched Interdependence Coalition. We will be talking a little bit about that, and you will hear from now on about it. But if you haven't done so already, I invite you to check out interdependencecoalition.eu website and see how you can join this conversation beyond being an audience in these coffee hours, but beyond that, joining into cause and action. So today, as I said, we have Eric Ezechieli as our guest. To some intro words about Eric, to give you also his background information. Eric is a regenerative entrepreneur and he is co-founder of Nativa. Nativa is a sustainability consultancy dedicated to accelerating the diffusion of regenerative business and is also the first benefit corporation in Europe and the first certified B corporation in Italy. Eric was chosen the most valuable player 2016 of the Global Benefit Corporation movement for his role in introducing, together with Paola Di Cesare, the Benefit Corporation law in Italy. And this was also the first of a kind in Europe as well. Eric, welcome, and thank you for joining us today. You have so much first-hand experience in bringing about legislative change in corporate governance, and look forward to hearing your experiences and share them with our audience today. Eric, maybe to start with, to understand the history that happened in the past decade in Italy, can you share with us what was the Benefit Corporation law in Italy? How does it differ from the B Corps and B Corp movement, and that what was Nativa's role in making about all this change?
Yes, and good morning, everyone, and thank you for inviting me this morning. And Paolo Di Cesare and myself come from similar but different backgrounds. We both have a business background. And at the same time, we were very deeply interested in sustainability and looking for a more evolved way to run a business. So at the time, we were running both businesses in consulting and other areas, and also a non-profit organization called The Natural Step, dedicated to sustainable development, very, very robust organization established in 1989 in Sweden under the patronage of the King of Sweden. And we were running the Italian branch as an NGO. And we were thinking business is not adequate to face the grand challenges of our time. It is limited in its scope, is narrow-minded, and NGOs, non-profit, do not have the engine, do not have the all it needs to really scale up a positive impact. So what can we do? And this was around 2009, 2010, and we were thinking about we wanted something, more evolved and more interesting. And we were pondering around this new model. How can we bring it together? And we pretty much designed this fusion of a purpose with the with the capability of a business, and we were drawing these schemes. And eventually, in 2011, we read an article on a Harvard Business Review. It was talking about the for-benefit enterprise as something that could change the course of capitalism. And when we saw it, they said, oh, this is exactly what we have in mind. And so without thinking too much, we transformed our organization into a benefit corporation. And but we didn't know they didn't exist, because we knew we heard something about the United States. There were benefit corporation. Of course, we are keen fans of Patagonia. And we knew that at the beginning of 2012, Patagonia had become a benefit corporation. And we read something about B Corps. And we said, let's do it. And we got the bylaws of Patagonia. We downloaded them from the internet, and we translated them and adapted them into Italian. And on 24th of July, we proudly signed the bylaws and the statute, and we founded Nativa as a benefit corporation based on California legislation. And the notary was fine. But eventually we went to the Chamber of Commerce, because you need the license to operate as a business as in any country. And the Chamber of Commerce rejected our bylaws, rejected our statute, said, you cannot do that. You cannot include the stakeholders in your purpose because the law doesn't allow it. I said, how is it possible? We are not asking for money to anyone. We don't ask for any help. We are going to pay taxes. We are going to do everything a business does. We just want the permission, or we grant ourselves as founders the permission to do something else. No, you cannot do it. So they rejected the bylaws 4 times in a row. And we came back every time with the same statute, with the same formulation of our purpose. And eventually, the 5th time, the employee in the Chamber of Commerce said, I give up. You are too, you are too hard to resist. And I register your company, but be aware, this is not legal. This is not regular. And we started to operate and to do strategic advisory towards sustainability, the core business of Nativa. And at the same time, we thought this is not possible. This is not fair. We need to change the rules of the game. And if it exists, it's possible. So we saw it exists in the United States, and we started to mobilize a few players in Italy, and especially eventually we met Senator Mauro Del Barba, and we started to cooperate with him. And to make a long story short, in 4 months, we drafted a bill, a proposal for the legislation, was deposited in April 2015. And on December 22nd, the law was approved. And since January the 1st of 2016, we got benefit corporations in place. And in Italy, they are called Società Benefit. So it was amazing just in 14 months. But to be honest, when the law became, let's say, active, no one really understood what was going on. So no one could really grasp the meaning. But there were a few companies that already adopted the legislation. And since then, it has been exponential. It took 4 years to achieve the first 500 benefit corporations. And now, in just the last year, they doubled to 1,000. And the trend is still accelerating. And we are working at a couple of projects potentially to create dozens or hundreds of thousands of benefit corporations. So it's very important to clarify that benefit corporations were invented, created, proposed, introduced by B Corps. So what are B Corps and what are benefit corporations? So B Corps many of you know already, but it's worth to remind it quickly. B Corps are those companies which measure all their performance, all the value they create, social, environmental, and economic. And they have to perform to the highest thresholds in the world. So it's a selection of the businesses that demonstrate, in fact, that they are best for the world and they satisfy the highest standards of sustainability. And Benefit Corporation, B Corps achieve this through a measurement, B impact assessment. And when they go beyond a certain threshold, they can be eligible for B Corp certification. At the same time, certification as a B Corp is not enough, because if you don't change the underlying legal structure, a company does not protect the mission over time. So it's about protection and alignment of the mission. So B Corps, since 2006 to 2010, pretty much coalesced and worked to introduce benefit corporation legislation, and this is spreading around the world, we hope, as quickly as possible.
Beautiful. And this was obviously the first of a kind in Europe, the first example in Italy, in Europe, Eric. And thanks to very stubborn leaders like you and Paolo, this came about really in Italy. And now, as you know, with B Lab Europe and B Corps, we're also pursuing this time mandatory legislation at the European level. We're aware of the urgency. The world has become much more aware in the last decade about the urgency, and it's about really bringing about this change in masses now, and not going country by country or company by company, and therefore we're going for this mandatory legislation at the European level. From your experience in Italy, and overall being a researcher also of this field for many years, what would be some of the things that we could learn from Italy to apply at a European level?
I would say that the main learning is that we are living in myths. There is a mythology about business, how it should be run, what are the principles, how you define success. But these are just ideas, and those ideas seem completely frozen, completely unchangeable, unless someone or until someone does something different. And then you demonstrate that, oh, there is a better alternative. I didn't think about it before. I thought it was impossible. But then when you see that it exists, it becomes possible. So we really like this saying that you cannot change reality by just forcing the change in reality. You have to create a better model that makes the rest obsolete. It was Bucky Fuller that had this perspective about how to change things. So what is emerging is that benefit corporations are so radically better with respect to traditional business that it's a no-brainer. I mean, why should we stay stuck with the shareholder primacy and such a narrow definition of value creation, which is also not, let's say, helpful, is not an advantage for shareholders either. So what is emerging is that benefit corporations perform on the market just as well or even better with respect to other companies. Of course, there are many factors. You need to run a company properly. You need to have a good strategy and a good product and good market. We take this for granted. But when you become benefit corporation, you just jump to another level, because by including stakeholders, you pretty much change your time perspective, your horizon about when you want to get results. And so with the traditional non-benefit company, you tend to focus too much on the short term, but there are such big trends that determine your success in the short term that if you don't consider them, you are not going to be successful in the future. So it's a more robust way to run a business, and the evidence is emerging very, very strongly. Just recently, we have phenomenal cases of benefit corporations that are public on the stock exchange, that become unicorns in a very short time. and investors are happily investing. We have mainstream companies that now are adopting benefit corporation status, and this leads to an amazing acceleration because the proof becomes stronger and stronger, and the other myths just fade away as as the fog in the morning.
Mhm. And as we know, also the cases of how stakeholder governance is profitable, economical, and respectful to society environment is also developing, right? The B Corp movement has also grown. And as you know, the B Corp leaders and friends are now forming the Interdependence Coalition also
Yeah.
to bring about this the action they've been taking, the leadership they've been performing to show it more collectively and make the case stronger at the European Commission. So Interdependence Coalition is really launched about 2 weeks ago to pursue this important goal. And as I said in the context setting, in autumn, we're looking forward to the proposal. Eric, in your opinion, and you work, obviously, you're a movement maker, you're really also into building masses in Italy as well. How can Interdependence Coalition, together with B Corps and B Lab, work together to pursue this goal? What kind
Yeah.
of like the changes we can anticipate with a tool like Interdependence Coalition?
Well, the Interdependence Coalition can be incredibly important in bringing together and letting people know about these case studies. And there are, I don't know, companies like Illy Coffee, which has become a benefit corporation, is also a B Corp. We have Chiesi Farmaceutici, which is an incredibly successful, innovative, and also profitable pharma company, which is a benefit corporation. And B Corp is the first benefit corporation, B Corp, globally in the pharma industry. And the rigorous standards of B Lab were applied in the most thorough way to because we know it's a very complex industry. And we have now the case, for example, of one subsidiary owned by Eni, the Italian oil company. And of course, there is a lot of attention. They became a benefit corporation just a few days ago on July the 1st. But this is very, very important because the Italian government is one of the shareholders of this company. And so they are demonstrating that they believe in this model, and they are investing a lot in energy efficiency and renewables, and they really want to use this model to have a solid foundation for an energy and ecological transition. So letting people know about these success stories is very, very important. And the other very important thing is to create a critical mass. Usually, the decision of policymakers are influenced by lobbyists, and traditionally or normally lobbyists come from a very large corporation, very traditional interest. But now if we can create a critical mass of this new perspective and lobby in a positive way, and of course with the support of the good lobby, which is a very precious partner of the lab, we can really lobby for a change in the structure of the legislation. And this becomes a fundamental enabling factor for the energy and ecological and social justice transition. We need to change the rules of the game for big change to happen. Now we have the EU recovery plan, the Next Generation Europe, but unless we change the substrate, the very essence of business, you don't have a very good, way to connect the strategy with the implementation. Whereas if you have companies, we imagine millions of benefit corporations and possibly eventually also B Corps, because become a benefit corporation is the entry level, is a commitment. Becoming a B Corp is an achievement. So we wish all the companies to become benefit corporations and then become B Corps. And this is fundamental in order to implement the next generation Europe strategies. So it's not an optional, it's something that really needs to change at the core in order to be able to build what we want to build for a sustainable future.
Mhm. And I love that you are, Eric, so clear. And when we were having the conversation earlier, you mentioned if something doesn't make sense, it has to go, and if it makes sense, it has to come. And I really
That's
love
to
that kind
thrive,
of,
yeah.
straightforward clarity. This is what the world needs. So stay positive, stay optimist, and bring about that change. But it's about really staying in the course of that action. And I mean, really appreciate you bringing about that attitude as well, because I think that kind of fires up and brings about that inner motivation, and radiates into this movement.
Yeah.
Um, Eric, I want to ask you about also this aspect of, um, obviously, we're also seeing court cases against big companies that are that want to make these companies accountable for their past actions, and these are all good, positive changes that we are keeping companies accountable for their
Yeah.
actions, but also, um, why would or how could a legislation could accelerate these kind of changes more than what's already happening? Why do we need also a mandatory legislation while there's so much movement already? What difference can we really expect in
Yeah.
practice? Also, maybe from Italy's example, you
Yeah.
can share with us.
Well, from voluntary, well, you can have a voluntary commitment in becoming a benefit corporation, and you have to be careful about what you make mandatory. But to go to the point why benefit corporation makes such a difference, the reason is that the shareholders give a different mandate to the management. So in a non-benefit, and I will start to speak more and more about non-benefits, because once you have a benefit corporation, all the other companies become non-benefits. So why should you define something with a negation? So let's talk about the appropriateness of being a non-benefit, and one day non-benefit will disappear. But in the non-benefit, the shareholders tell to the management, you have to create value for the shareholders. This is the only single instruction you have to follow. In a benefit corporation, the shareholders give a completely different instruction to the management, and it's very simple. You have to create value for you have the freedom, you have the permission to create value for both shareholders and stakeholders. And as a shareholder, if I make this decision, is because I understood that if you management create value also for the stakeholders, I will eventually benefit as a shareholder as well. So it's not in conflict. The evidence is emerging very strongly. There is not one against the other. And this makes all the difference, because the managers, the CEO, the board, and everyone wakes up every morning and say, okay, I have to create value for this category and for the rest of the world, and for now and for the future. And it completely changes the mindset. We call it double purpose mindset. It's completely different to run a company with double purpose mindset and with a single purpose mindset. So many companies are already doing it, even without being benefit corporation. But there is a vulnerability there, because conditions may change, the management may change, investors could come in, and you could lose this, double purpose. So once it's written in your bylaws, it's there to stay, and is a different operative system for the company. I think it's indispensable. I mean, I cannot, and in Nativa, we cannot imagine a future in which this is not the normal, just the new normal.
Yeah, and I guess it's about creating a level playing field for all companies, right, Eric, in the economy. I was also having another conversation with Jacob Gilbert. You will know from B Lab. He was also mentioning that the power of stakeholder governance is that some companies pioneer, but they have a lot at stake to pioneer and to lead the way, and then others may follow. But if we, by legislation, allowing all companies be empowered to pursue same level of risk, same level of opportunities, then we also allow companies to take faster action and to be more
Yeah.
confident instead of being fearful about, being different or leading about a new change that nobody really knows about yet or buys in yet.
Yeah, is really setting different rules of the game. I think who is already moving this direction is does not fear anything, so to say. They just think is the right thing to do. But in order to accelerate, to scale up this model, it would be useful, important to have some kind of push, of legislative push. And think about an ancient example. At a certain point, we decided to abolish slavery, and someone already did it. Someone already was against slavery and didn't accept this to be the norm. At a certain point, it became a planetary rule. Now you wouldn't found a company with a business plan based on slaves to make your profit. And we think in a few years, it will be unacceptable to create profit by destroying value for someone or something, or destroying opportunities for future generations, or degrading the environment. This will be just illegal. So, let's speed up the process, because time is getting short. We see what's happening with the climate. We see what's happening with social imbalances. And unless we reverse the mythology, we are going to get worse and worse. And the other way around, if we reverse the mythology, we can take off to another level.
Eric, shall we suggest a next step in changing this mythology? If one next step that we can all collectively take is maybe to say together that join the Interdependence Coalition and also be a change maker in pursuing its goals, from to change the to bring about mandatory stakeholder governance, into aligning investment and corporate governance, and creating EU-wide aligned requirements. Eric, I thank you so much for joining this morning's call. Do you have maybe last words to our guest this morning before we go into closing?
Yeah, last thinking, and we've been discussing a lot within Nativa, and then with many partners and organizations we work with. We think it's really time to be bold, and maybe crazy, maybe maybe radical. You name it as you want, but we cannot just keep going as we have been going. Our model, our economic paradigms have been very successful until now. We have been thriving thanks to a certain model and structure. But we have achieved really the boundaries, the limit of capacity of the planet, the planetary boundaries, the social boundaries. And from now on, we have to become radical and really push for a very strong change. And so just go for it, and let's go together. So let's join the Interdependence Coalition, and stay tuned about the changes that are going to happen. To happen, we are working on a couple of projects that we hope will make news. There is a saying: if you don't like the news, go out and make your own. So go out and make some news.
That's the leadership. That's the leadership. And I guess that's the new human presence on earth that we are inviting through these actions as well. Thank you very much, Eric. I think everyone on the call, you can follow Nativa and as our partners in Italy as well. And you will definitely hear more from him and Interdependence Coalition in the next weeks and months as well. Wish you all a good day for now. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Eric.
Thanks. Bye.